insanity. I just saw this graphic from MLB Network that had the DBacks, Padres, and Dodgers. They've got the 3 best records in baseball since the All-Star break. What do you make of that? I mean, what are the odds that 3 teams in the same division have played like this for such a prolonged period? And thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember this happening actually early in the 2017 season, right? I think we're near the All-Star break, and the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, and Rockies were the teams with the 3 best records in the National League. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit unique what's happening in the second half, but it speaks to the quality of all 3 teams. You know, I don't think any of us really anticipated the race being quite this close. To this point, I think the Diamondbacks have played exceptionally well as they've gotten healthy. It's a much deeper team than 1 year ago. And I think the Padres have proven, you know, that they are a really strong team. And the fact that Yu Darvish is coming back is a huge positive. So I think it's exciting. I mean, it's great to see that there is competition at the front of that division. We don't get that very often with the Dodgers in the West. And so it's set up for what should be a fun last month of the season.
Jackson Merrill is your Rookie of the Year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's him, Paul Skeens, and Mason Wynn with the Cardinals has had a really good year. You know, I think I would assume that you guys are pulling for Merill, right?
Yes.
No, this is Team Skeens over here. No, yeah, definitely Merill.
I don't know that I don't know that I have a clear-cut favorite between the two of them yet, but they should be 1-2 in that mix.
But to more on Jackson Merrill, not take away the Rookie of the Year stuff, just speak on like what he is doing this year as a 21-year-old who came in playing a completely different position. And right now, I mean, he's turning into one of the most clutch, if not the most clutch player in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's incredible, I think your point is that, you know, he's doing this without having ever played the outfield, right? So, you know, he was an infielder, and it went from being like my partner Jim was recounting this story the other day. We were in camp, and during spring training, it was like, yeah, Merrill's a pretty good left. I think he's got a chance to break with the club. And then it was like, oh, we're going to try him in center. And then it was like, he's our center fielder.
Right.
So I think it's incredible that he's been able to handle the position well. You know, I mean, I guess if you're a great athlete, right, the middle of the field is where you belong, and that's certainly the case with Merill. I think it's the fact that the power has come the way it has. You know, a lot of times that's the last thing that comes for a young player, but he's such a gifted hitter, and he certainly seems to have the rise of the occasion. I mean, the home run yesterday off Edwin Diaz was really a remarkable moment. Diaz is really good. And that was a hell of a comeback for the Padres, too. I mean, you know, as great as Merill is, and as much as he's, you know, in the mix for hardware at the end of the season, let's not forget that this team wouldn't be anywhere without Jurickson Profar. And the 2-run homer he hit to tie the game was a massive, massive blast. So it's been really fun to watch. They certainly are playing with a lot of confidence. They have an edge to them right now, and I think it makes for, you know, a team that is going to be really fun to watch, and one that's likely at this point to make the National League postseason.
I think what's interesting, Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio with us right now, and Jon Jim, is that not only are they playing well, they seemingly are getting healthier, right? I mean, Joe Musgrove's come back and has been good. Yu Darvish is back from the restricted list. We'll see when we see him. Fernando Tatis Jr. spoke to the media Friday, said you'll see me next month, talking about September. So when you think about what they're getting back and where they are, I mean, is the National League completely wide open in your opinion, or is the front runner remain whom? Is it Philadelphia? Is it LA, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the front runner remains the Phillies just because of the overall talent.
Sure.
But I think, and I don't remember if we've had this conversation before, but the National League playoffs are, I mean, any of the playoffs in baseball right now are as big a crapshoot as you're going to find.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great study that was done by the analyst Ben Ballmers probably like 7 or 8 years ago now that showed that it was like, I think it's 80% of NBA favorites win their round, right? And for the NFL to do that, it would have to be like a best of 15, I think, in each round of the playoffs. And the NHL is like best of 41. And for baseball, it's a best of 75. And that's before accounting for this current format. So, like, I think if you get in, you've got a legitimate chance. And if we're picking favorites, we're doing so by the slimmest of margins. And I think the Padres 2 years ago, the Phillies 2 years ago, the Diamondbacks last year are a pretty good indication of what happens in the playoffs. Just get to the dance, and then it's March Madness. And like the madness part of it is if you feel like you've got a really good team and you're out in 2 games or you're out in the division series, and that part sucks. But if you can make a run, it gets super exciting, and the pressure and the excitement builds every single day. And certainly I think the Padres are capable of that. All they have to do is make the tournament, and they've got a chance.
Yeah, AJ Preller here has been criticized a lot over his tenure for, spending a lot of money, making a lot of trades, and not really equating to anything other than the 2022 season. This year, Mike, it feels like every move he has made has worked out in a big way. For you, just talk about how he has done this season, in your opinion, and should he be considered for like executive of the year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't even started to think about who would be in the mix for executive of the year at this point. And I think you would have to say that the Padres' success probably puts him in that mix. If Kansas City ends up winning a postseason berth, I would think that J.J. Piccolo, with the way that he went about attacking free agency on a team that lost 100 games a year ago and is on pace to win 90-something, would certainly be in the mix as well. But I think more than anything, forget the hardware. This is just a more functional roster than what they've had. Now, I think that, I think some of that they lucked into, like most teams do, right? Like David Peralta being healthy and hitting like he did 5 years ago was not something I think anybody had on their radar. I mean, remember, that's a guy that he got off a good start with the Dodgers last year, but then hurt his elbow, was hurt for most of the second half, had surgery, was in the minor leagues with the Cubs, got released by the Cubs out of AAA. What Peralta's done, I don't know that you can say that that's entirely a scouting find so much as that there's a little bit of good luck involved in that as well. And that's great. Like every good team needs to have some good luck involved, right? Like I'm not using that as a criticism. I think that that's the reality of it. And so, I think there are things that are going to make this roster work better because they've been fortunate that they've gotten some of these performances. And then I think you also look at the fact that they've got a bullpen that's about as good as anybody's in baseball. And that's going to be really important down the stretch and as you get into the postseason. But make no mistake, their lead is comfortable right now. The Mets are 2.5 games behind Atlanta. And so there's a cushion there that the Padres have, 6 games in the loss column right now over in New York, right? Mm-hmm. We should be in about another 2.5 weeks talking more about planning for the postseason than we are about the Padres making it or not.
Mike, final one for me before you go is just about the value of the division, which I think has changed over the years, obviously. And now we have format changes and, we've seen teams win divisions but bow out in that divisional round. Padres haven't won a division since 2006, and this won't be easy. 4.5 games behind the Dodgers with 30 to play. What is the value for you? I know it's only been 2 years of this postseason, but is it a decisive, huge, massive advantage to get that bye or not based on what we've seen the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has much to do with the format. I just don't think that. I think the nature of baseball is such that, just like what we talked about, right? Like it's going to be, it's much more wide open for the underdog to win any given round. That said, I think you'd still prefer to have the bye. I mean, as much as everybody talks about, these teams that got the bye that didn't play well. Well, the Astros had the bye in the first year of this, and they swept through the American League playoffs and won the World Series, right? So, that's a big. I think that's a big feather in its cap. And the Braves losing the last 2 years, a lot of that has been due to injury. Spencer Strider not pitching regularly down the stretch impacted them, and then all of a sudden he's pitching in a playoff game against a good Phillies team, right? So I think there's some of that to it. So you'd clearly rather win the division. You'd rather have the time off. You'd rather be in a position where you can set your pitching where you want. But in the end, I don't think it's the be-all and end-all. And I think anything that happens where you hear people say, well, it's better to be playing for something down the stretch, or, the layoff makes players rusty and the hitters can't get their timing and all of that. There is some truth to those statements, but I don't think that it is that the amount of time that's spent talking about it is weighed far more heavily than the actual impact of it. So I think it's great to win divisions. I think it's great to put flags on the ground. Flags fly forever, whether it's the one at the end of the year or a division championship. But I think clearly by the Padres being 3 wins from the World Series 2 years ago as a wild card team, they know as well as anybody that you don't need to win the division in order to have a chance to get there.
I think it's well said. Great perspective, as always, from Mike Ferrin. We're looking forward to this stretch run. Hard to believe, inside of about a month here to go in the regular season. Mike, thanks for doing it here in San Diego. Let's do it again soon. We always appreciate the time.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Take care.
All right, great stuff. Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio will react.